Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 5, Episode 5 of our weekly Q&C and A and T videos. I almost forgot our own acronym for a second. It is...
our own show.
Our platform title has become a little bit unwieldy.
Yeah.
But anyways...
I think it'd be easier to remember if it was TNA, but anyway, okay.
No, it was the C that got me.
Alright.
But we realized that a question from Eddy G came up on our Patreon, and we wrote out a post in response there, but there's a possibility that he might have expected to see it in Q&C&A&T. And also, I mean, it's useful information for anybody who doesn't know, so we're going to restate it here and basically read out what our Patreon post was.
Right.
With some modifications here and there. So he says, "Hey guys, quick question for y'all. I've heard you multiple times saying that we should back up our characters to be safe. Could you elaborate more on that? What are the best apps to do that on Android, and how exactly does it back up your characters in case something goes wrong? Thank you in advance for any info you can provide." So there we go. It's a good question. It's an important question if you don't know for sure.
Yeah, and we've touched on it, I guess, in passing a lot, and over the years, I think the information is all there, but it's probably not entirely fair to expect people to watch our entire oeuvre.
Yeah, I think we say something, and then maybe we say it a couple times, and then we are like, oh, so like, you know, like we've been saying, and then like we've been saying is sometimes something we said like 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden it doesn't become super relevant to somebody who starts watching us, sees like, I don't know how many videos, like 100 videos in between now and then says, like you've been saying what? I have no clue what that means.
That's true. All right, so let's get into the meat of it. Using third-party apps to back up data is meant as a safety net in case something goes wrong with your WBID. You can't isolate one part of your progress, like you were saying. So, for example, characters, you can't just save that one part, but you can save your progress in its entirety at any moment in time, just the same way you do for your computer.
Yeah.
So, Injustice's WBID save is usually pretty good, but given the nature of the game and the hundreds of hours that we put in, it makes a lot of sense for us to have something more than just the WBID. And, you know, the WBID has been known to fail rather catastrophically when it does. So if your Injustice is linked to your Google Play account, that's another potential backup. But with so little control over choosing when you create a Google Play backup, we prefer to use a third-party app. And there's probably other apps out there, but the two that we've had the most experience using, and we'll link these in the description, are Helium and Titanium.
Yeah.
And I guess it goes without saying we're talking Android. So the main point of separation between the two, Helium and Titanium requires a rooted Android device. Helium does not. So if your device is not rooted, Helium requires that you have a computer and the Helium software to be loaded on it. And each time you turn off your Android device, you need to reinitialize Helium on your device after you've hooked it up to your computer.
So not easy for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how often you turn off your device, right? And you can still use Helium even if you're not rooted. What the difference is that you actually never need a computer. So it can sort of reinitialize itself every time. I should mention there's also a paid, sort of a premium version of Helium that's available. And even though we don't need or use any of the extra features in the premium version, we did pay for the license as a way to support the devs, because we use it so much and we've had good experiences with it, and it saved us more than once.
Yeah, it's been more than worth it. It's one of the cases in which, you know, throwing a couple bucks their way, if you look at the value that it's provided us over the years, is more than worth it, even if from a strict standpoint of like paying for the extra service on top wasn't necessary.
Right. And here's the thing, no matter what third-party app you use, it's always a good idea to test your backups. And I can't remember where I heard this, but there's that, the old saying, right? It isn't a backup until you've restored it.
Yeah.
And I've heard horror stories about people who've made backups for years, and then they go back to it, and then they try to restore something, they realize that they haven't been making a backup for, you know, like months.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind, anytime you restore a backup, at the moment of restoration, your device progress is going to be out of sync with your WBID save. So you have to do something to prioritize your device progress over the server progress. And that could be anything as simple as making a purchase or completing a fight. But whatever you choose to do it before you log back into your WBID. Because then there's a chance, if you don't do that, your WBID is going to overwrite this what you've just recovered.
Yeah, and I think there's the adage about a backup isn't a backup until you've restored it. There's also, for really important data, and this is not something that you're going to be doing in Injustice, but for important data, what you're supposed to do is have on-site and off-site backup. So in that case, helium or titanium is the on-site backup. And
actually, that's one of the features. So one of the premium features is you can store it in the cloud.
Yeah. So helium, we're using it for important data, but not like, I guess, especially significant data. I don't know. It's hard because the precision of language is important to us.
Like critical, you mean?
Critical, yeah. It's important. It's important to us, but it's not critical data. So, but if you have critical data on your phone, you can actually also store that pretty well with helium.
Yeah, I mean, I've used titanium too. It's not bad. It's just it probably doesn't have the same utility for everybody because it requires root.
Yeah.
I mean, we have root. But when we're talking about it as something, that's useful for most of the people who are watching, I'm guessing that a larger number of people will not be rooted.
Sure. Okay, so there we go.
Oh, and if there's more questions, let us know. We were happy to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Zeemc, and they say, one thing that I'm thinking about now is it's actually going to be easier to figure out whether or not we've talked about this before and just link it instead of talking about it again now that we have people like iProphet, and it's mostly iProphet in the description, right? We can actually we'll actually be able to search this in the future. So,
and Arian Munir once when iProphet was sick.
Yeah. So there we go. So our next question comes from ZMC, and they say, guys, I need help. I'm asking here because at this point I gave up on Warner Brothers support throwing me a bone, and I don't think you're alone in that. I think that's been the experience of some other people too. So they say, my roster consisted of all the possible characters in the game, all maxed out at Elite 10 level 60. No hacking, just glitching and grinding. I logged in and did one normal campaign match to get some credits, and when I completed it, I automatically clicked on the next button. When I checked my collection, my characters' levels have all been rolled back. The Elite 10 level 50 ones went back to Elite 7, and the level 60 ones rolled back further to Elite 7 level 25. I did all the possible fixes except for saving my progress in a third-party app. Uninstalling, reinstalling, reloading cloud, WBID, clearing cache/data, airplane mode, praying to the Injustice gods, the works. The main issue here is I think is that my rolled back roster may have already been saved to the cloud. Is there any possible way for me to load my cloud save from a week or 2 weeks ago so I get my correct roster back? Any response would do.
Yeah, I think the problem isn't that it's possibly saved to cloud. It definitely has been saved to cloud, and that's it. So, and we responded to this a little bit, right, in the comments originally, talking about how there's some inconsistencies. I mean, there's something doesn't fit, because if you've got all the possible characters maxed out at Elite 10, then there's something wrong. Either they're not all maxed out.
You mean all the ones that you could max out?
Yeah. So let's assume that that's that, and it's not a hacked account. So maybe some of the theory would be useful. There's a line of code for each character to show that if it has had the breakthrough and how many. So when that line is corrupted, anything over Elite 7 reverts back, reverts right back to Elite 7. So 8, 9, 10 goes back to 7. Anything over 50, which doesn't happen until you hit 10, right? Elite 10?
Yeah.
It'll revert back to 25. So we've seen this behavior a bunch. Now, that one line getting corrupted may not be true for everyone, right? So we've seen people who go back and use an older version of Injustice that doesn't have breakthrough. They bring the character in, and when they log back into their account in the newer version of Injustice, well, it's wiped that line, and all of a sudden, this is what you see. But this is not what people have been describing, right? Most people haven't been using or talking about it, and this should seem like an obvious thing that they would notice.
Yeah, is signing into an earlier version, because that can create issues when you've got data in your game file that isn't able to be read by the game.
Right. So I wonder if there's something else that we're missing, because it seems to happen a lot with the same kind of corruption, and if there's something that happens when your account fails to connect with the server And I wonder if at that moment it does something to make it think that somehow it is from an older version of Injustice. You know, like one of those kind of errors that's not so obvious, but it seems to be happening so often that I wonder if it's more than just like a random kind of thing and it's a pattern because of the way it communicates with the server.
So, unfortunately, we don't have an answer for you. I guess the long and the short of it. I mean, there's some stuff that we could, you know, make some guesses at, but we don't know what causes this specific issue.
But this is one of the biggest reasons why we say don't go back to a previous version of Injustice, right? To take advantage of the glitches that are there.
Yeah, and this is also a good example. Unfortunately, it sucks to be an example when you feel like you've lost something and you can't get it back. But this is also another really good example of backups, doing as many as you can, as frequently as you can. Or frequently enough that you never lose enough progress to really, truly feel like awful, you know? To feel like you're losing out on a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. Our next question comes from Official King, or this is more of a comment. It's a set of 2 comments. So we're going to make some minor, we're going to say some minor stuff about the first comment and then read the second comment and then kind of go from there. First comment, Official King, and they say, you guys are dying, and then there's 2 crying emojis. Getting less views and comments. I grew up watching you guys. Don't want to see y'all go down. To be honest, Injustice is dying. Try new games like mobile survival games like Last Day on Earth or console survivor games. Please, I love you guys. Pause. No homo.
Okay, so he grew up watching us.
That's...
Well, you know what's funny? We both, you more than me, we both grew up filming this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The idea of growing up watching us maybe explains a little bit the use of the term no homo, though I kind of wish that somebody who grew up while our videos were being made would have grown up in a time period in which no homo wasn't used.
Well, because you don't need it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like we care. Let's say you were homo. Or I guess there's something wrong with the term too. I feel funny saying it, but I want to respond in kind. It wouldn't even matter.
Yeah, even specifically for us. At the end of the day, that's kind of your burden to bear. You know, it doesn't really relate to our lives, so that would be fine. I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and I guess to me it's a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Because I would have expected that in the world that we're living in now that kind of. Maybe I'm a little bit naive to think it should be gone, but that it's not really as much of a consideration. But this is the kind of comment we see every once in a while, that people like us, but they want to really be clear that they don't like us that much.
Yeah.
Or in that way.
And I think it's possible that, you know, it's the kind of joking way, right? I think in a lot of cases, whether or not they're like purely joking, they're trying to be funny when they say that, because it's kind of clear. But tone over pure text stuff doesn't show up super well, and when you hear something like no homo, it's more likely to trigger like a red flag than it is for you to assume that somebody's just joking, you know?
Yeah, I guess the other thing is too, we have a little bit of a role to play, I think, in being clear, right? Like, we can't just let it pass so that people who might be understanding it poorly have some sort of a camouflage to be able to say, oh yeah, but they're like that too.
Oh yeah.
And we're not like, you know what I mean? Like, so even sometimes it might seem like we're sort of sucking the wind out of it and taking the fun out of it, that we just want to be really clear about where we stand. And I like that we actually have this platform a little bit.
It's more important to us that people know exactly what we're trying to say than, you know,
to be funny and then be wrong. Like, you know, John Scalzi says the failure mode of clever is
asshole.
Yeah.
So there we go. I guess a little bit more long-winded on what was probably a very small component of your initial comment, but we think it's kind of important. So our next comment comes from iProphet 3, and this is a reply. And iProphet says, they're not dying. Sure, the game might be dying, but we're supporting them just as much as we did before. And their Patreon got more people supporting them. As long as we, the people, and I love the term we, the people, applied to fans of BDCKR gaming.
That's true. As opposed to we, the people, the United States of America.
Yeah, now imagine me with my hand over my chest, you know, like puffed up, shoulders back. As long as we, the people, continue to support them, they will not go anywhere. Of course, if the game dies or gets unpublished, then we probably won't get to see as much as we'd like of them.
I just want to talk about maybe some behind the scenes stuff too that's a little bit interesting to me that I would not be aware of.
Yeah.
So the obvious thing, because made a conscious decision at the beginning that we wouldn't hide our subscriber numbers or the views on the videos, which I think some people can do, right? Like when you do on thumbnails.
But the majority of people don't.
Right. And so that's more transparent. What's not transparent is the ad revenue.
Yeah.
And iProphet brings up a great point that the ad revenue isn't everything. If anything, right now, the Patreon is maybe generating about as much each month as our ad revenue. It's pretty close.
Yeah, and so the cool thing is when we were doing pretty well, our ad revenue was a little bit more than what right now our ad revenue and our Patreon combined are. But if you actually look at it from our perspective, you know, in the metrics that matter to us, we are getting almost as much money as we ever had, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's never been the main factor anyways, but just from that metric of success, we're not actually doing really much worse at all. And the quality of engagement, even if the number of people engaging, has also gone way up. I don't think earlier on in our channel, we had people like, you know, iProphet who would do like captions and stuff like that. That feels like, you know, a really...
more valuable.
Yeah, that feels more valuable than an extra 20 comments saying that the glitch is patched, or, you know, an extra 15 likes by people who like things habitually, and an extra like 2 dislikes from people who dislike things habitually, you know, like that.
And fast too. It's like they're subscribed to us to be ready to pounce as soon as the video gets uploaded.
On the dislikes,
right?
yeah. So,
oh yeah.
So from our perspective, the game is updating more slowly, but we've actually kind of found a pattern. I think we found people who like us for our commentary, which has been really cool, like separate from the game, just like the way we talk and the things that we talk about, which has been a really cool thing to have. And I think we've also in a lot of ways found a formula that we enjoy making more than we did before, because before what was exciting was the idea of making YouTube videos and having a bunch of people watch them, and the videos themselves were things that we were interested in, but I don't think the actual production was necessarily the draw. And I think more than ever, videos like this, like I enjoy talking about like YouTube and a lot of the topics that we cover in the Q&A. The actual creation of the video is becoming more and more one of the central draws of making the content. It's content because the creation of it is more fun than it was before. So it's...
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, do you agree? Do you have anything?
Oh, I completely agree. Like, it's changed, the feel of this has changed a lot, right? Where I felt more of a, I guess, when there was just so much new content and we were competing against other people who were also putting out new content, there was not less joy.
There was like an undercurrent of struggle always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if, all right, so maybe this actually encapsulates the change really well. So yeah, we definitely have fewer views. We definitely have fewer comments on the videos. I think the nature of the videos, though, lends itself to what we're seeing, which is that we're actually getting more income per view than before.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, the amount is down a little bit, but in terms of per view, it's almost like YouTube is telling us, yeah, the people who are still watching you are actually more valuable, and here's the ad revenue to prove it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So I think definitely iProphet's assertion that our channel is not dying feels more true to me than the assertion that our channel is, because even in the worst case scenario, like before we started the Patreon, the amount of money that we're making from ad revenue was not that much more. It was like almost a negligible difference from what we're now making just from the Patreon. And that number hasn't decreased a lot, but let's say it does. Let's say we have like a pretty low contingent of fans. As long as we keep getting, you know, fodder for the Q&A and enough enough fodder to continue making the content that we're currently making, you know, everything comes to an end eventually. But I don't see like a moment where I go, oh yeah, definitely the channel's going to be dead in like X number of days, months, years, you know?
And here's the thing too, it gives me an excuse to give you a shout a couple of days a week now.
Yeah, so it's definitely not a bad thing. And I think we've reached a point where even if Injustice was dying more, I think for the people who like what we do, we might actually make more of an attempt to transition to something else. Our idea used to be kind of, you know, our channel lives and dies with Injustice, and I think that our channel as we know it definitely still would, but I'm not 100% sure that I would just drop this anymore.
Right. The problem with switching to game, though, is the unseen amount of time that it takes to create the expertise and for collecting game like this, the resources, so that the videos or the information itself has any value independent of us just talking.
Yeah, and for the stuff that we actually do, Injustice has been a pretty great and malleable game to let us get all of like our specific style of content out, right? As far as just talking over, you know, play videos in the background, just something to watch, right? And I mean, I'm sure we could do that for other games, but not a lot of other games have the kind of like purely theoretical nuance that Injustice does. Like a lot of games, like, you know, first person shooter has a lot of mechanical nuance, but not a lot of numbers nuance, and I think that's the kind of stuff that gets to us more, that we like.
Planning game is more interesting to me because my ability to interact with the game, like to handle the user interface, is pretty bad.
And it's harder to talk about using UI really competently, especially if we're
if you're not seeing it on the screen.
So but there you go. I think what that ended up just saying is, no, our channel's not dying. We're actually very happy with where it is right now. And I think there's moments that we've been more excited about our channel because we were looking at this kind of like what felt like really explosive growth. But I don't think it was ever as in the pure creation of content and, you know, the quality of feedback, I don't think has ever been this good.
Yeah. True.
So I think it's a different thing for sure. This isn't the honeymoon phase maybe anymore, but it's still
this is a marriage.
It's still a very positive experience, you know, making YouTube videos.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, so there we go. Our next question comes from Tiger D, and they say, question, best way to gear Batman Flashpoint for basic damage. Thanks to your challenge reset glitch, I got him to E7, and I appreciate that. It's kind of not our challenge reset glitch. It was kind of a lot of people were helping with it, and we've done, you know, differing amounts of work on it, but I appreciate you basically giving us full credit for it. We'll take it happily. And so, should I put 3 to 4 star basic damage gear, or should I have 2 of them plus Lux Core helmet for crit damage boost, or any other combination?
So I think the nomenclature that we're trying to standardize is that 3-star gears that become 4-star gears,
3.5.
those 3.5.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a link to a Reddit thread. Somebody asked a similar question. I put a pretty detailed response with some numbers because, you know, I'm a number nerd.
Yeah.
And I guess the underlying part that we need to talk about is just why it works a certain way. So because of Flashpoint Batman's passive, getting crit chance is the most important thing, and once you've maxed out crit's chance, increasing basic damage is the next most important thing. The least important thing is crit damage boost if we're looking only at basic damage and getting it as high as you can. If you want to make Flashpoint Batman tougher, you'll want more than just basic damage boost, but for increasing damage, the crit damage boost is the least efficient.
Yeah, because if you increase basic damage, crit damage applies to that. So you get the plus like 75% damage, and then you get the times 2.5 multiplier on it. So it makes more sense to do the thing that happens before the multiplier rather than to just increase the multiplier a bit.
To add it, yeah. So basically, so after we've maxed out crit chance, right? So if you go in the priority, crit chance, basic damage, and then crit damage boost. When we're increasing our basic damage, we like to get a secondary effect, and so the Nth Metal Morningstar gives a stun chance on special 1, bonus spikes or the knife collection gives a heal on special 1, and custom rifle gives an unblockable chance, and all are pretty good options, right? If you use stun, you get a full unblock swipe combo after special 1, you know, and heal is heal, you know, straight up you're a little bit tougher. Unblockable tends to be the one we don't pick because the chance is so low. But in certain cases, the unblockable chance for a different character, not Batman, on Flash, for example, is better because he gets in 2 hits on the swipe combo, even if he's blocked on the first one. So
smacked back.
Yeah, so the first swipe, or when you swipe once, he gets 2 hits, you get both of them even if they block.
Yeah.
And both of them can independently be unblockable. And that's a part of why the reverse flashes endless swipe combo is so good.
Yeah, because there's even a chance if they do block that there's still nothing they can do about it.
Right. So the question about using the legendary gear is, if you think that your damage is enough without one of those basic damage boosts, then yeah, you can do something to make them tougher. You know, so sometimes maybe we'll use overpowered super, because even though there's a smaller basic damage boost, it has a higher crit chance, and it has some combo ender effects, but because we don't use the combo ender as much as we should, it's probably not as good a loadout for us. And the advantage of using some of the legendary gears is that you get a different effect to make Flashpoint Batman a little bit tougher and hardier and not so soft, but you do it at the expense of his basic damage not being as high.
Yeah.
So it's really how you play. And I like going, you know, all out, balls to the wall, just total offense, no defense, and it makes it a little bit more fun, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so there we go. Our next comment comes from Arian Munir, and they say, I'm kind of a bit frustrated as I asked you a very interesting question in your last video, but you didn't consider putting it in your Q&A. I don't know what was wrong with that question. Maybe I shouldn't give you any more fodders for your Q&A videos.
And when I was making notes on this, just like little point form, because sometimes I'll write stuff down to make sure I want to hit on certain points. I wrote down swear less, and then it made me think of smile more.
Swear less. Smile more. Don't let them know what you're against or what you're for.
So, iProphet and Awesome Gamer 241 made some quite helpful and kind comments.
Yeah, pointed out that we said we didn't get to all the questions, you know.
Yeah, and we totally appreciate that. And they were probably kinder to someone who, for what I think everybody sees, is obviously very invested in what we do. But, you know, here's what people don't see. So we have a filter on our comments to put into moderation not just swears, but bigoted insults.
Yeah, because we'll let profanity in moderation. We just have a little, basically like a one step, so that we can check through to see if somebody's swearing, because on average those comments tend to be just lower in quality and that just not worth reading, so we kind of do the reading for you.
Yeah, and maybe this goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? How much responsibility do we have to make this the kind of place that we would want to visit?
Yeah, and
I mean, it's not really a place, right? I mean, YouTube is YouTube, but I mean, our channel as an area where people can talk about injustice.
Yeah, and I don't think we owe anybody that, but I think it's worth doing, you know?
Maybe we owe it to ourselves.
Yeah, maybe.
So here's the thing. Even if he didn't make all those other comments, there's no guarantee that we'll see a specific comment, although maybe the chance is better now that we don't get as many comments as before, like it's not nearly as busy. And even if we do, there's no guarantee that we're gonna feel like talking about it. I mean, I'm nobody's dancing monkey, and the tone of these kind of comments are a little problematic for me, right?
Yeah.
Because all right, so remember when people threatened to unsubscribe if we didn't do something?
Oh yeah.
or maybe offered subscribe if we did something specific.
Yeah, and we're like, well, if you're doing something because we're doing something for you in return, like if there's a kind of like a direct, you owe me this or I won't
quid
do
pro
X,
quo,
then
Hannibal Lecter,
you know, it's less important to us to you know, do it, because we've got people in our comments that, you know, comment because they're interested in hearing what we say, and you're clearly interested in hearing what we say too, but it's separate from, you know, I'm commenting, and in exchange you will put me in your video, you know?
Yeah. And here's I guess along with those other things where people tell us, oh, if you do this for me, I will subscribe all my 5 different accounts to you,
and then never watch any of your videos again.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's an underlying feeling like it's a threat to comment less, even if that's not the way it's intended.
Yeah.
And that kind of threat has a lot less weight than anybody might imagine. I mean, do you remember when this used to be not Q&C&A&T, but it used to be Q&A combined with the weekly recap?
Oh, yeah.
And it used to be 15 minutes or less. And now we're I mean, 3 ultimates, right? We're consistently about 30 minutes around there.
Yeah, we've adopted something that is becoming dangerously close to a podcast format, which I think a lot of content creators are transitioning to nowadays, to differing levels of acceptance. But we did it a long time ago, and it happened slow. It was a slow accumulation of minutes. So
it was organic.
Yeah.
And we're running out of time too, right?
Yeah. And
maybe not today, but we're this is the thick beast that we're fighting. I guess it depends on how fast we finish off this fight and how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
But you know, I guess maybe if we were hoping to make a living out of this, we would be so desperate to keep every single viewer that we already had and not want to lose anybody.
Yeah.
That it might be tempting to, I don't know, capitulate and pander to the smallest kind of demand.
Yeah.
On our time.
Yeah. So I guess the one thing that
I don't want to do that.
The one thing that we can talk about is, your question was about a specific thing that you saw that I don't think we've ever seen. So there was nothing for us to say about it.
Yeah, and these Q&A&Ts or Q&C&A&Ts, I did that too, I just forgot a letter, are not meant to be just us reading a whole bunch of people's comments. I think it was really a chance for us to maybe have a slightly deeper discussion about some, and I guess deeper sounds just really. Hoity-toity. Yeah, it was not so much deeper as just have a chance to an excuse to talk.
Yeah, the videos got longer because we got more sidetracked, or because we answered more questions, or because we picked questions that took longer to answer, or because we picked questions that just said an interesting thing and then said, oh, well, I mean, we can just kind of talk about whatever from here, or this reminds me of, a thing, and that's what the talking is, and that's what the comments are, where neither of those actually have to ask a question or answer a question. We're just reading things that other people said and then saying whatever it is that we want to say, whether or not those things even end up being super related. Yeah, they start out vaguely related. Yeah,
but so here's the thing too. All right, here's another sidetrack. This is why convention panels are so good. Mm-hmm. What convention panels are like are basically conversations among people who you hope, because you picked the panels you attend, are interesting, that you like.
Yeah.
And it's like a moderated conversation.
Yeah, about a certain
touch
topic.
On a bunch of interesting topics. Yeah.
And
it might be start off with something you're interested in, but it just goes way off the rails sometimes in a good way.
Yeah, and that I think all depends on how strongly it's moderated, whether the point of it is supposed to be the topic or the people talking, and how much the moderator wants it to be about the topic and how much they want it to be about just the people talking.
Yeah, so if anybody listening to this has not been to a convention, and clearly if you're playing Injustice you have some sort of fandom, check out what conventions you've got near you. We're actually going to be going to Montreal not too long from now and attending a science fiction fantasy convention.
Yeah.
And for exactly that, right? There's some authors that we really like.
Yeah, and we went...
And... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, we went to NerdCon, and I think we actually uploaded the Night Vale panel or something, so if you want to look at that...
We did!
That's a potential insight onto what panels can look like, although that's obviously not the format that all panels are. Ooh,
I should link to that actually.
Yeah, so we'll try to link that in the description, or maybe you can search for it yourself depending on whether or not we do that.
Yeah, just BDCKR Night Vale. Yeah, that should bring it to you.
Yeah.
I still didn't get to talk about the flashlights. Okay, so we'll maybe try.
You keep wanting to talk about your flashlights, and we keep running out of time. Okay. Well,
I think it's trying to tell me something.
We've reached the end of our content. We're going to do the Patreon spiel now. We go to Patreon, patreon.com/BDCKR. Click our link in the bottom right corner at the end of the video. But more important than new people coming to support us is us appreciating the people who have already made the decision to support us. So we have Eddy G, who you heard from in this video, Edwin Felix, and Console Peasant, who are all supporting us at the highest last word tier. You have iProphet, who you also heard from in this video, who is supporting us at the Your Message Here tier. And you have Shawn, Farrell, LAIN, and Daniel Simonson, who are supporting us on the credited level. Thank you guys so much for your support, and thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Komoda.